Good morning, good morning, good morning.
This is Auto Collabs.
Yes.
You
See, if you've been around the automotive community just long enough, you may have heard those words spoken kind of like that, although I don't do it justice. We're talking about our man, Glenn Lundy, and today we get to have the opportunity to have him on Auto Collabs podcast. So thanks for joining us. Man, there's some stories that I think everybody could tell about just the way that they've interacted with Glenn Lundy in the automotive community.
Let me tell the very first Glenn Lundy Asodu story. This is the very first interaction that ever existed. I had never spoken to Glenn Lundy in my life. I had seen him a little bit around online, but not a lot. And the lockdowns were ending. It was October 2020. And we were going to do that event in Philly where everyone flew in, and I just was trying to see who had some energy and who would come out and who was crazy enough to do it. And I just called him. I got his number and I called him. And I introduced myself. I told him what we were doing as a Sodu, and I asked him if he would come. And he said yes. He literally heard the passion. He sized me up, and he flew out on his own dime, and he gave the keynote at the very first in-person Asodu event. And we'll link it up because it exists online. And that's just, for me, that was the shot in the arm that I needed, and I think it was so good for the industry. And that was my very first Glenn Lundy experience and the very first Glenn Lundy Asodu experience. He's an OG.
You know, my first experience was kind of similar, but it was in reverse. I got a phone call one day. I was producing videos for the YouTube channel that I have, and out of nowhere, I get a phone call, and it's a number I don't recognize, and I answer, thanks for calling, Michael speaking, and
Yeah, you had all your professionals on.
Yeah, and it was like this. Yo, what you up to? And I'm like, speaking?
Sounds about right.
And he's like, this is Glenn Lundy. What you up to? I was like, hey. So he's like, I watched your video. I need you to come and visit me in Kentucky. I'm buying your plane ticket right now. I was like, oh, what's that? He's like, I need your help. And next thing you know, 48 hours later, plane tickets booked. I'm packing.
Because that's how long it actually took you to fly from Canada to Kentucky.
Just the next province.
He went right to the airport.
Yeah. And I'm packing, and I remember vividly this experience of packing, and I look over at my wife, and I'm like, this is like a Tinder date. Like, I am going on a Tinder blind date with some dude I've never met. Another 24 hours beyond that, boots on the ground, and I'm Uncle Mike. Like, the guy just welcomed me into his family to a degree that no stranger has ever done it. And now we just have such an awesome relationship with one another.
That's awesome. Well, I'll tell you what, the thing that I know about Glenn, he's always willing to say yes if he can, and that's what I like. He's on a podcast with us, and right before that, he's texting with Grant Cardone, and he's on Dave Meltzer's show, and all this. Like, you just think some people might be untouchable at some point once they kind of get to a point, and he's just willing to say yes, especially for the automotive community. And you hear it in his voice, you hear it in his passion. So we're excited to share with you our conversation with Glenn Lundy.
One of the things that I love about all of us banding together to create the Auto Collabs podcast is something that we said when we were all together in Philly. We're finding others who are shooting up a beacon and creating a campfire, so to speak, to rally around. No better example of this than our pal, our friend, Glenn Lundy. He is the founder of the 800% Elite Automotive Club, and he joins us here now. He's going to be a featured speaker at AsoduCon, which we're excited to hear his remarks. Glenn, thanks so much for joining us on Auto Collabs.
Dude, are you kidding me? Thanks for having me, dude. This is like the only place I really want to be. The other stuff, I just do that stuff so that you guys will invite me into this room.
So you do that so that you can afford raffle tickets for pageants.
That's right. That's right.
So good.
But no, man, you guys are awesome, man. This.
Well, we're excited to have you on.
I'm super excited about your new podcast.
We're excited to have you, especially because there are a few people that we come across, obviously, that start from zero and take it to one as quickly as you have, which is always inspiring, and it really just creates something cool. But I want to maybe just turn it over to you for those that may not yet have heard of the man, Glenn Lundy. Tell us, a little bit about your background in automotive and how it is that you created 800% Elite Automotive Club.
Yeah, man. Obviously, Glenn Lundy, husband to one, father to 8. That's right. I got 8 babies, and I've been in the industry for 25 years now. And Michael, really, I had 2 seasons in auto. I had 1 season where I was at a dealership for 8 years, and the dealership never grew at all. We were selling 120 cars when I started, selling 120 when I left. And then I had another season at another dealership, a Chevy Buick store. And in that store, we grew 800%. We went from selling 120 cars a month to averaging 850, with our best month being just over 1,000. And both of these were in small towns, right? Both were in small towns. Both were well-known brands. And when I decided to leave retail, we took a look at, what really was the difference between similar stores, similar town size, massively different results. And ultimately, the formulas, the patterns showed themselves. And I've gone out now and we're helping owners and general managers of car dealerships all over North America. We've got 104 rooftops now that we're serving, and ultimately just injecting them with some of that secret sauce on how they can grow and scale their volume, profitability, employee retention, and most importantly, the overall culture in the dealership.
All right. So because everyone's asking right now, what's the secret sauce? Now we all get that there is some secret sauce to making sure that you're embedded into, interacting with these dealers. Obviously there's personality embedded in that, and not every dealership there's no prescription, and none of us would argue that. But I'm guessing there were a few key things, because when you go from an 8-year tenure that probably a lot of people don't even know about you, which is that early 8 years, to the latter 8 years, that's honestly, I think I had heard you say that maybe once, because I've heard your story a couple times through the Breakfast with Champions stuff. For me, coming from a place where I kind of started in a larger store set and then went to a smaller store and kind of grew that incrementally, but not massively. What was that? Was it a shift in your mindset, or was it a team thing, or what are the maybe 1 or 2 key factors, though there's obviously a laundry list typically when that happens, and it's not a prescription, but what were those couple key factors?
Well, I think one of the first things is, contrary to popular belief in this industry, and Michael, don't get mad at me, and Brian Benstock, don't get mad at me, Speedzak, don't get mad at me.
Wow.
Contrary to popular belief, it's not all about data. Right? Everybody thinks it's data, 1s and 0s, it's numbers, it's lead counts, it's formulas, and all that stuff. And yes, that stuff has value, but the reality is it's people. It's people, the right people in leadership, the right people that you hire, the right people to fire in your organization. We have a very long tradition in this industry of putting the wrong people in leadership positions and trying to drive results through the wrong paths, right? And it's through our people. We should not have revolving doors with our people and long relationships with our data companies. We should have long relationships with our people, and if we have to adjust our data companies, we adjust our data companies.
Well, why?
I think that's one of them. Is
let me ask you a question about that. You said we have a long history of putting the wrong people in place. Can you drill into that for a second?
Yeah, so this guy right here, man, I used to be an awful human being. Seriously, I was bad, right? I was a bad dude in the car business in my early years, but I sold a lot of cars. So guess what?
Bring us back further than 10 minutes, though.
Yeah. But who got promoted? I got promoted. Why'd I get promoted? Because I sold a lot of cars, man, right? And so it didn't matter that I was a bad dude and I had bad character and all of those things. They put me in leadership positions. And of course, we didn't grow or scale. And I think we do that in this industry all too often. We weight it so heavily on performance versus actually looking at who is driving the culture and the energy in that building.
Well, they're different skill sets, right?
Totally.
Being able to sell a car and being able to lead people who sell cars are not the same. So thank you. Thanks for
you are 800% accurate.
800%.
He said 800%. I feel like we should have a ding every time he says it. It's like we just ding, right?
There's a misnomer in business that just because I'm the one that owns the thing, I got to be doing things in the business, right? I have a client, because of that level of self-awareness that you're talking about, Glenn. He's like, yeah, I own these rooftops. I am not the right person to lead the teams, though. And he knows his role. And I think that's when he first told me that, I thought, wow, that's kind of douchey. And then I was like, actually, no, he has enough self-awareness to realize that just because I put up the money for the thing doesn't mean I'm the right person to work in it.
Yeah.
And so he's found people, and that's how his organization thrives. What's your take on that? Should maybe perhaps more be looking inward and saying, hey, am I the right person for this position I've placed myself in?
Well, I think, John Maxwell says it best, right? The best way to train and develop people is first I do, then I do and you watch, then you do and I watch, then you do, and then the fifth component to that is you teach, right? And so I think it's important, if you own a business, that you do everything initially so that you at least have enough knowledge and wherewithal to be able to hold people accountable, right, to the results. I think the problem in this industry, though, is we learn to do something, we actually get a little bit of an ego attached to that. Then we don't want to let it go. We don't think anybody else can do it as well as we can. And so the intention should be learn it so that you can pass it on to the next, right? That last part, teach. Don't learn it so that you can hang your hat on it every day. So I think it's a combination of knowing and understanding how your dealership operates, but just enough information and knowledge that to know that if it's not in your wheelhouse, hire somebody who's passionate about that. Hire someone who's going to be an expert at that, and just make sure you know at least enough to hold them accountable to do the job.
Are you finding that, like, as you go through dealerships, that more and more, especially executive management, is willing to do that work of recognizing what it takes to do the job today, right? Like, I think of a general manager, an owner, or even a GSM or something like that maybe came up through the 90s and early 2000s in sales. And yes, they've trained and led and been a part of the transition to maybe a more digital ecosystem or a new culture wave, but haven't gone back and retaught themselves actually doing that work. Are you seeing people moving back toward that, or are you encouraging that at all to go, hey, look, if you haven't gone and written a service ticket or taken a customer from A to Z, or even help change a tire or anything like that, are you seeing people go back to that or encouraging that?
But I'm past that now, Kyle. I'm past that. I'm a manager now. I don't have to do those things anymore. I have people for that. No, man, it's a freaking pandemic, an epidemic, one of those type of emics in this industry that they don't do that, right? They don't go back and learn the thing. Everybody use the CRM to its fullest, but me. Everyone post on social media twice a day, but me. Everyone, and it's just like crazy, man. So yes, I highly encourage leadership to get in the trenches with your people, learn the technology, you don't have to be the best, but be involved, right? Just be involved. And when your people see that you're involved, they don't want to disappoint you. They don't want to let you down, and they'll ultimately shine in the different areas. And it helps you as a leader to be able to get people in the right seats when you're in the room learning the same things. And you're like, oh man, Michael's really freaking good at this. I had no idea. Look, he's taught me this, and that. And Paul's amazing over here, and Kyle's amazing over here. And it gives us better insight on putting people in those right places. So I don't see it enough, and I do encourage it, to answer your question.
Okay. So now I'm going to bring it home, because this podcast is called Auto Collab. So we got to talk about some level of collaboration, and what I think that, like, the next step on that. And I'm sure everyone's seen the the Undercover Boss, right? Where all of a sudden, like, the boss goes undercover, and the person is telling them, like, what should be done at their level. And they're like, I never thought of it that way, right?
Right.
That's, for me, that's like the ultimate collaboration. Like, when a dealer principal or general manager or GSM or fixed ops director or anything like that goes and does the work, and then because they've done the work, or that maybe when they're doing the work, the person is more apt to say, hey, look, boss, we've been doing it this way for a hot minute, and I don't think it's working. Like, couldn't you see a deeper level of industry collaboration if those bonds were broken in our industry?
Oh yeah, man. Oh yeah, and we can expand it even further than that, Kyle. Like really, if you if we want to take it out, obviously there's two sides to every coin, right? No object can exist in this plane anyway without having two sides, right? I mean, a piece of paper has two sides. It doesn't matter how thin it is, right? And so the more eyeballs we can get on something, the more perspectives we can get on something, the more of a holistic view we receive, right? I'll use 800% Club for an example. 800% Club is a collaboration of franchise dealers, independent dealers, large dealership groups, single point dealers, dealers that are in big cities, dealers that are in small towns, dealers in the United States of America, and dealers that are in Canada, right? We have all of it. And so because of that, when we get in our when we do our Q&A sessions and our best practices sessions, we're getting perspective from an independent store selling 30 cars in Louisiana. We're getting perspective from a franchise store selling 600 cars a month over in Tampa, Florida. And then we're getting perspective from a Chevy store in Canada and everything in between. And all of that together gives us such a well-rounded picture of what's really happening in the industry. It's powerful, man. It's really, truly powerful. So yes, absolutely, Kyle. The key to collaboration is listening, right? Listening to other people's perspectives with an understanding that we may not always agree or do the same things that they do, but by seeing all the sides, we get a full view of what's really going on.
I like the idea that you have all this broad variety of types of businesses, sizes of dealerships, even, different geographies. It's great. But you said in the beginning that, fixing the people issue and focusing on the people issue, you get to go in. I almost kind of see you as like, the nicer, friendlier Gordon Ramsay, right? Where you get called in to a place and you want to be like, this place is a bloody disaster, right? Like,
what are you?
Yeah,
right. An idiot sandwich.
Oh, an idiot sandwich. And so, but you get to go in to all this different variety of places. What are the common things that you see in all of them? Like, what are the people issues that you see that are consistent across all those big and small and independent and franchise and Canadian and U.S.? Like, what do you see?
Every time you say Canadian, I feel like Cirillo's going to stand up and like come to attention and say, my queen.
And he's going to say, eh?
I'm like, where's the hand to kiss? There's no hand here to kiss.
My liege.
You just see one coming.
Hey, Paul, the one thing that I see across the board, and it is an area of growth, development, and opportunity for 99% of the dealerships in this country. The one thing I see across the board, and it falls in line with some other missions in my life, but I believe if you change the way you start your day, it'll make a massive impact in your life. What I see in dealerships all over the country is that their morning routine is awful. Morning routines at most dealerships are terrible, right? So-and-so trickles in at whatever time. The other person trickles in at whatever time. They trickle in after staying up to playing Fortnite till 3:30 in the morning or drinking or partying or whatever it is that they were doing. They show up at whatever time and they're carrying their 2 cans of Rockstar Energy or Red Bull or whatever the heck it is, right? They got their 2 cans.
I feel like Rockstar makes its money by like finding dealership personnel. I think that's a thing.
Yes, exactly, right? And Monster Energy, Rockstar, and then they've got like an IV of coffee sticking in like the back of them, right? And then they all come in the store at whatever time, and around 9 o'clock, they look at each other and say, who's getting breakfast? What are we having for breakfast? And then they're like, let's get McDonald's. Okay, who's going to go get it, right? And then they figure that all out, and then they go get breakfast. Right? You guys know how it is. And then they all go get breakfast, and at about 10:30, 11 o'clock, people start actually getting to work. Oof. That is one of the areas, one of the first things that we look at while I'm working with dealerships is I'm like, dude, let's get a powerful morning routine in place for your people, right? Where we start at a certain time, We listen, we encourage, we advise and develop people at a certain time. They know what to do the first couple hours of the day. That keeps them efficient, keeps them moving, keeps objects in motion tend to stay in motion, that whole deal. And it ends up trickling down to where if they're making powerful decisions in the morning, now they have to make better decisions at night. So they're not up playing Fortnite till 3:30. They're not out drinking all night. And when they make better decisions at night, we all know nothing good happens after midnight anyway. So if we can get our people in bed before midnight and get them rising with intention and purpose, now they develop as better humans, and the ripple effect just goes from there. So that would one thing I see across the board is the way dealerships start their day is terrible.
I want to hear a disaster story. I don't know. I don't.
Do you want one from today? Or?
No. So as you're saying this, like, I know there's a situation where you went in and you dropped some truth and you laid this out and everyone's like, he's kind of right. Give us an example of when it didn't work and why. And then give us an example of when it really worked and why.
Oh my goodness. When an example of when changing the way they start their day didn't work?
No, when there was such resistance to changing that they didn't, right? And it kind of imploded. I mean, I'm thinking Gordon Ramsay. Think of my frame of mind, right? Someone's throwing a coffee pot.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, Paul. I guess I don't.
It's like, I don't fail.
I don't. I know that sounds egotistical.
He's like, I don't know what it feels like to strike out.
This stuff is so simple.
Well, that's what I was just thinking.
That it works. It's so simple that it works, right? And I will say this. I tell every dealer that I work with, I say, hey, in the first month, we're going to see some awesome results. Everyone on your team is going to be excited. In the second month, you're going to fire somebody or somebody's going to quit. Like every single time, because what we do in this industry is we get all, oh yeah, great, we're going to do this. And then we don't follow through on it. And our teams are used to that. They're used to, oh yeah, just ignore them for 5 or 6 weeks and we'll be right back to doing whatever we were doing.
Right.
So when we continue to apply pressure past 6 weeks, 7 weeks, 8 weeks, 9 weeks, they start to realize we're actually serious about it. You start to figure out who on your team is actually willing to change and who's not. Mm-hmm. So, but I don't consider firing people or people quitting. I don't consider that a bad thing. Like that's usually required for us to break out of what we've been doing and to move into what we are doing.
Yeah. Have you ever seen a situation where someone didn't get fired or didn't quit? Where there was big change?
Fired who didn't quit.
Like that second month doesn't happen. Like everyone gets retained.
Every time.
It has not happened yet.
Right.
Every single dealership that I've worked with has lost people in month 2.
And then tell us what happens in month 3.
Then in month 3, there's a little bit, well, actually month 2, we usually see a dip, right? Like, because we do lose some people, the energy's a little bit weird. Mm-hmm. People don't know exactly what's going on. And then, of course, because we're in the auto industry, there's nobody in the pipeline. So now we've got to go figure out where we're going to hire. And, we start calling all the people, hey, can you help me figure out an ad? I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, let's go, right? But once we start to get key people in place, we find 2 things. We find that the people that are still there tend to rise to the challenge. So 90 days in, 120 days in, we start to see that the 8-car guy becomes a 12-car guy, or the manager that was kind of dragging their feet a little bit all of a sudden steps up and has newfound energy, right? When we remove those cancers from the situation, every time I see people rise and we get great results. 90 days in, 120 days in, we typically see 25% increase in volume from where we were, if they stay the course up till that point.
How long does it typically take for someone to truly feel like they've turned it around and now they're in a groove, their habits are in place, their team is aligned and fire in the same direction? Because everybody wants everything now, right? And just told us like month 1, you'll be excited because it's new. Month 2, it's going to suck. You should just give them an envelope like, don't open this for 35 days. Right? And it's a well-written job ad. Right? They open up. I told you we're going to need that.
That's right. Yeah, for real.
That's so legit.
And then month 3. So like how long would you say before you're like, okay, the training wheels are off now and they're confidently riding in that direction?
Yeah. 18 to 24 months.
So real
18
time,
to 24
right?
months.
Real time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It takes some time, right? Because I mean, you're going to see results early. You're going to see some results, and then it's a matter of how do we maintain those results and how do we continue to grow and scale? How do we not get comfortable with a 25% increase, right? It's 25. Now we got to take it to 30 and 35 and 40. And we got to take it to 100 and 200 and 300. And really until you run into the problems, because we don't know what problems we're going to face until we run into them, right? 100 car dealerships have different problems than 200 car dealerships, and 400 car dealerships have different problems than 200 car dealerships. And so until we get there, we can't really solve the problem until you kind of run into it. And so it takes a while. 18 to 24 months in, you now have the right people in place. You've gotten rid of anybody that's not on board. Your team knows that it's a growth culture. You have your partners in place as far as the different vendors for marketing and so on and so forth. You know what's working and what's not working. You're telling your story online. You've started to really establish your identity. And at that point, we start to see, there's still a lot to learn and a lot of space to grow. But at that point, you start to see that who you were is no longer who you are. And that's when you can start pouring some fuel on the fire at that point.
Do you find that becomes part of the job, like constant reminders of, hey, but this is the path? Like I think about what you were saying, Paul, like that's a good chunk of time, 18 to 24 months. That's like, this is the car industry. This is like dog years. 24 months is like 8 years to a car dealer. But I also tend to think, but the time is passing anyways, and you have to do something in that time anyways. Why not finally untangle this box of Christmas lights and get things set up properly? How do you mitigate some of that human kind of carnal desire of like, but it's got to happen now? How do you do that for these dealers?
Yeah, so awareness is everything, right? And then holding people accountable and continuing to reiterate. So I understand that it takes quite a while, 67 days actually, before biologically it becomes easier to do something than to not do something. So the conversation I have with my dealers right out the gate is you have to stop thinking in 30-day windows. I know the manufacturer told you that things change every 30 days. I know that you tell your employees they're hero to zero on the first of every month. I know that your entire career has been built in 30-day windows, and this is why you've grown incrementally and you're not able to truly multiply. I was just reading right here, a little shout out to Automotive News, and you can't see it because of my little background thing. But I was just reading in here, right?
It's because we're not sponsored.
Yeah, Bosch has a plan, right? Bosch has a plan. They're putting $3 billion into play so that they can get relief from chip crises. And their plan is by 2026, they're going to have some things in place where they'll never be in danger of a chip crisis again, right? This is how real companies think.
Yeah.
Real companies don't think in 30-day windows. They're planning 4 years out.
That's good.
Okay, they're investing today for a result they want 4 years from now. And that's literally the biggest issue, I think, with our industry is, dude, you cannot reinvent the wheel in 30 days.
That's good.
You cannot make big moves in 30 days. Give yourself some stinking runway, right? Give yourself some runway. Have a 3-year plan. Have a 5-year plan. Have a 10-year plan. And start deciding right now to invest today to get the results 3 years from now, 5 years from now, and 10 years from now.
Well, I know you're a busy man. You have a lot of things to do. And so thank you so much for just spending 30 minutes with this community. You are a true collaborator and a great, great friend. Glenn, best of luck to you. Whatever else you're doing today, we look forward to hanging out with you really soon at ASOTOCon.
Can't wait, man. ASOTOCon. I will see you there.
So that is the one and only Glenn Lundy. I'm so excited that he's doing his morning show live at ASOTOCon.
Is he
so
really?
excited.
I don't know if I... Okay, look, I'm excited.
Gut check moment. How excited are you, Kyle? First of all,
Here's...
okay,
Look.
it is Eastern time. You're on Central.
Let me clarify. It's Eastern time, right? So
It's already 4:30,
it's
Kyle.
4:30, okay? Plus,
It's ASOTO time.
the 2 nights before will be some... they will not be early nights to bed, if you know what I mean. So, but I'll be there.
Fortnite?
I'll be there.
A lot of Fortnite. It's not early nights to bed if you know what I mean. Like, what is you mean?
I'm not playing Fortnite, guys. I'm not playing Fortnite.
So So Glenn does a morning show, and if you don't know it, he did a morning show called Rise and Grind, which he did at 1,000 episodes, where every single weekday morning, 5:30, he'd wake up at like 3:30, prepare the show, run it himself at 5:30. He did 1,000 episodes. I mean, we saw him. He was like in Vegas, and so that's Pacific time. His show starts at 5:30 Eastern time, and it was like 11 o'clock Pacific, and he's like, well, I got to sleep for like 38 seconds, and then I got to get up and do my show. The man was committed. He stopped for a minute. He's back doing it again, and he's going to do it live from a SodaCon at 5:30, and I'm going to do my very, very best to be there. I feel like I have to be there, and I will, because it's going to be awesome. I don't know what condition I'm going to be in after it, but I will be there.
It's going to be tough, but we'll be there.
I love the guy's mindset. Like, there is no question about his level of commitment, especially, and like the clarity of his vision. And yes. I think that's what's required in order to have a commitment level like his. I did want to make one correction as we were winding that interview down. He said nothing good ever starts after midnight. And I'm not kidding you, boys. I wrote down a note that said, I'm pretty sure all my children started after midnight.
After midnight.
I'll see myself out. This is that Homer Simpson backing
and
into the
roll
shrub.
tape. No.
He talks a lot about cultures of counsel, though. Like counsel, S-E-L, not C-I-L. Like, I'm not here to lead up a council of people. I'm here to counsel, collaborate. And I think that feeds into what we're trying to have happen here on Auto Collabs podcast. Is it's a big council. We want voices heard. We recognize everybody's had different vantage points and experiences and things that they've accomplished or failures. And we want to bring all of that in. And I love how he's doing that at the single and dealer group rooftop level.
Well, we hope that you drew a little energy from that interview with Glenn. We hope that you draw a little energy from just being in this environment with other people that are doing things that are moving in the right direction and are really committed to walking with one another and improving one another. On behalf of Kyle Mountsier, Michael Cirillo, and myself, thank you for listening to Auto Collabs.
Welcome to Auto Collabs. Why are we recording?